Well, the first thing is we need actual leadership from the federal government on education. Now, I'm a Quebec MP, so I'm very, very sensitive to provincial areas of jurisdiction, and I'm not. But at the same time, health is very much a provincial jurisdiction, but the federal government has a leadership role and needs to continue to boost that leadership role around the Canada Health Act, around making sure that people have access to high quality health care everywhere in this country. Well, we should be doing the same thing around education, working with provinces, working with institutions, understanding that the federal government can and must have a role to ensure high quality, accessible education for everyone in this country. Obviously, that means First Nations students who do not have parity in terms of how we're investing in education and whose outcomes are much worse than everyone else. But at the same time, it also means looking at the barriers that exist in young people having access to the education that they're going to need. We need to look at the shifting our RESP programs so that people can have capacity to pay in and have lifelong education. There's lots of things we can do around that. There's things we should do around student debt repayment, linking it to salary and future earnings, so that people don't worry about starting life off with a debt load that they'll never be able to repay. And I was talking with some of the CASA guys about making sure that we allow people to have part-time jobs that don't endanger their loans. We have to. There's a whole bunch of shifts that need to be happening, but the way to do it is first and foremost say, our goal is to make sure that everyone has access to high quality education right across the country, and then you build towards that. The biggest mistake it's making is being completely absent on the education file. Whether it's early learning and childcare, which is part of the continuum that they've been completely absent on and not recognizing the challenges facing families. Whether it's not demonstrating a willingness to work with the provinces to make sure that the resources available in K-12 and the focuses that people need in terms of jobs are able to be had. I mean, we're cutting art programs, music programs, phys ed programs, and that's reducing students' capacity to understand there are multiple paths to success and paths to develop confidence. But largely, this government's absence of action on the post-secondary file as universities are continuing to struggle, as debt loads increase, as people are having harder times finding jobs out of university. There is really a need for the government to step up, and this government simply hasn't. The big challenge is that we're in a trend line that we don't want to continue. In the year 2000, we had a majority government with 170 plus seats. The very next election, we were down to 135. The very election after that, 100. Election after that, 77. The election after that, I mean, it's a straight line down to 35 now, right? So if we continue the way we have been, we're going to disappear. And that's where I've been so excited over the past year that we've managed to completely turn that around. And the one thing that you can do once you hit rock bottom is it's either change or cease to exist. And we have transformed both the way the Liberal Party functions. We've pushed away the politics of negativity, of division that seem to be so successful these days in politics, and said, you can get elected that way. You just can't properly run a country as diverse and as big as Canada if you've gone and divided people so completely as that. So taking a whole different approach that's all about connecting people, drawing people in, empowering them. We see those results in the by-elections that we had last year, where we had great surprising numbers of people coming out in areas that weren't particularly Liberal before. We're seeing great fundraising numbers. We're seeing huge numbers of volunteers, of members coming forward. All that means that the way of doing politics more positively in a way that is focused on empowering the citizens is really getting a lot of resonance. The Conservatives feel that the way our economy is functioning is just fine, and Canadians should be happy they don't live in Spain, and that's the end of their economic focus. The NDP want to divide the existing pie into smaller and smaller pieces and share them more equally with everyone. The Liberal Party knows that we need to transform the way the economy functions, because over the past 30 years, even though our economy has more than doubled in size, average family income, median household income in this country has increased by only 14%. So the vast majority of Canadians, middle-class Canadians, haven't had a real raise in 30 years. And what that means is people are struggling. And for the first time ever, there's a sense that maybe this next generation that we're part of is not going to have the same opportunities that our parents' generation had, and that's that turnaround of the idea of progress of Canada. And what we're very much focused on is how to get an economy that grows from the middle out. Which means investments in education, investments in better jobs, looking at infrastructure that's going to make a difference over the next decade and generation, not just immediately. It has to do with a real shift in the way we engage with government around evidence-based policy rather than ideologically based. And that's where the Liberal Party has the flexibility to do. You know, people like to divide and say, oh, this is a provincial area of responsibility, or this is federal, this is municipal. When you do that, you sort of forget we all serve the same citizens, and we should be working together. And obviously, you know, the financial resources that the federal government have are significantly greater than provincial budgets that are really stretched, and municipal governments who you know, serve the citizens most of their services, but have only a tiny fraction of the tax base that others do. It implies that we absolutely have to have federal leadership that is extremely attentive and respectful in working with various levels of government to make things happen. So you know, when you're talking about something like education, which has long-reaching consequences that stretch out across the country, because it's not true that people stay in their hometowns for their entire lives. You know, people are crisscrossing the country for work, for play, for discovery, for learning, for careers. We need to have a framework in Canada that oversees education and empowers different regions to solve their challenges in a way that, you know, lifts up the whole country. We're stuck in a bit of a vicious cycle where young people don't feel that politics is a meaningful way of making change in the world, so they don't bother getting involved, they don't bother voting. And then politicians look at young people and say, well, they don't vote, so why should I do anything? And that's why we spend so much time talking about health care and pensions and not nearly enough time about talking about jobs for young people or education. And for me, the class of 2015 will be a tipping point. For me, the class of 2015 is that generation of people who vote for the very first time in the 2015 federal elections. And I know that if young people who are deeply aware and deeply empowered towards the world around them, if we suddenly realize how much demographic weight we have and how much electoral power we can have as a generation, we can change politics for good and suddenly give people the capacity, give politicians the capacity to deal with the big long-term issues as opposed to short-term electioneering, which dominates our electoral system. So what I challenge young people to do is get up, stand up, speak out, get involved, be part of the changes we need to make. Someone asked me at one point, okay, Justin, you're really going to focus on how to get young people to vote Liberal. And I said, actually, that's not what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on two separate things. I'm going to focus on how to get young people interested in politics and interested in voting. And then I'm going to work to make sure that the Liberal Party responds to the kinds of things that young people are worried about when they vote. Those are two separate issues. Getting young people understanding their power, their strength. I mean, there was a study done that took the 2011 election results and said what would have happened if only 18 to 25-year-olds votes had counted. Well, we'd have 46 Green MPs. All right? I mean, the Parliament would look totally different right now. And understanding that the weight that we have as young people will really, really matter is the big thing that I'm pushing, that people actually understand that it's important to go out and vote because you'll change the world.
Awesome.